Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Dalid Amud Beis, 8 lines from the top. After the Gemara had told us that the crossbeam of a mavui cannot be higher than 20 amos, and discussed certain amos as being either measured by 5 tfachim, sometimes maybe measured as 6 tfachim. Then we discussed that sometimes the tfachim in the amma are soichakois. That means that they're a little bit more of loosely put together as the arba gudolim to make up the tefach, whereas sometimes they're atsevois, they're tightly put together to make the 4 ugudolim into a tefach. Then the Gemara has said that Rav makes the statement that shiurim, all types of shiurim that we have, together with chatzitzos and mechitzos, all are learned halacha l'Moshe Misinai. That means that Moshe Rabbeinu was told orally by HaKadosh Baruch Hu these halachos. They're not being able to be found in the verses themselves, but they're considered to be halacha l'Moshe Misinai midiraisa. Now the Gemara is discussing the latter two. It already proved that indeed, even though there's a pasuk that is Mishabech Eretz Yisrael with the Shiva meaning, again, it's only a crow that the Rabbanan were soymech on. But ultimately, the halachos that we learn from that pasuk, teaching us different shiurim, is halacha Moshe Misinai. Now the Gemara will go on and explain how indeed chatzitzos as well as mechitzos are halacha Moshe Misinai. Says the Gemara, chatzitzin de'araisanin. The Gemara challenges and says, is it indeed true that chatzitzos are sourced in halacha Moshe Misinai? We have a pasuk that states Dirshu v'rochatz es kol b'saroi, that a person must immerse his entire body. Shelo yehei davar choitzetz bein b'saro l'mayim. There should not be anything that is going to be a chatzitza between his body and the water. B'mayim, the drasha the Gemara brings from the word b'mayim is b'mei mikvah. It doesn't have to be a water source. It's a natural water source like a spring, as mayim chayim. It could be a mikvah. Kol basaro mayim. All of his body should be immersed at the same time in water. Shekol gufoy oila behen. It's entirely in the water immersed. V'kama hein. How much water is required for a mikvah to be kosher? Amo al amo berum gimel amos. 1 amo by another amo with a height of 3 amos. V'shiura chachamim me mikvah mem so. And the chachamim measured that to be a total of 40 sa. So we're left with the question. We have the pasuk that tells us that indeed we learn out you cannot have a chatzitza when one immerses in a mikvah. His entire body must come in contact with the water. Answers the Gemara, ki itzrich hilchasa l'sa'aroi. The halach l'Moshe Misinai is coming to teach you that even a seyar that is tied into a knot will make a chatzitza. U'kiderabba barav huna, dom rabba barav huna, nima achas kshura choitzetzes. One strand of hair that is tied as a knot will make a chatzitza. Shalosh eina choitzetzes. 3 are not, because 1 strand of hair that is made into a knot is tight enough where water cannot go through. 3 hairs that are made into a knot, there's enough. It's not tight enough where the water could go through. Shtaim eini yodeh. He says 2 is not clear to him if it's considered to be like 1 strand of hair or like 3, whether water can go through it or not. So the Gemara is saying, that's halacha l'Moshe Misinai, that a knot, when it's tied, indeed makes a chatzitza. Ask the Gemara, no, sa'aro nami de'araisu. We'll prove that seyar is also min dehatara. We can learn it from a pasuk. D'Tanya. It says in that pasuk that we quoted before, rachatz as kol b'saroi. The person must bathe his entire body as hatofel lebisaroi. Zeoseyar. The extra S, they darshan as being that which is tafel to the basar. And what is tafel to the basar? It's the hair, the seyar. So therefore, that itself is learned out that if there's a seyar that has a knot, that can be a chatzitza. So we learned that from the pasuk itself that we quoted before. V'roachas es kol b'soroi. So therefore, how does Rav say that chatzitza is halach l'moshe misina when we have it from the pasuk? Answers the Gemara, ki asoy hilchasa l'ruboi u'l'mi'utoi l'makpid l'she'eno makpid. Halach l'moshe misina, you're right. From the Torah's verse, we learn out that indeed there's such a concept of chatzitza. And not only a concept, but even a strand of hair that is tied into a knot will also make a chatzitza. But halacha l'moshe misinai teaches us when it comes to then immersing oneself in the mikvah, if it's ruboy umakpid, if it's roiv of his goof, and he's makpid about that. For example, it's tar or it's clay, or some dioi, ink, all of those things, a person would be makpid if it's on the majority of his body, and therefore, if it's roiv and it's makpid midiaraisa, that's going to be a mechit, that's going to be a chatzitza, and that's halach l'moshe misina. We learned that out. Could Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yitzchak, davar Torah, referring to halach l'moshe misina, ruboy umakpid, alav chaytzitz. If it's roiv and he's makpid, then it's considered to be a chatzitza midiaraisa. V'she'eno makpid alav eno chaytzis. But if he's not makpid, then it's not chaytzis. V'gazru al ruboy she'eno makpid mishum ruboy hamakpid. They were goyzer, even if he's not makpid, but it's on roiv of the goof, then that's considered to be a concern midirabona, and they made that also into a chatzitza. Because they said, if a person is going to have ruboy, even if it's not makpid, then maybe if we permitted that, then they'll also permit ruboy that's makpid. So they said it's also to have ruboy that's eno makpid. Ve'al mi'ut hamakpid mishum ruboy hamakpid. They also made a gezerah for mi'ut and makpid, because even though midiraisa it's only mi'ut is only roiv umakpid, but they said if a person is mutter, it does not have considered to be a chatzitza at all. When it comes to miut umakpid, then he might come to then say it's permissible even to have roiv umakpid. So therefore they said midirabban and miut umakpid is also prohibited as a chatzitza. Ask the Gemara, if we're going to be concerned about making mistakes, then v'ligzor nami al miutoi she'eno makpid. Let's also make a gezerah of miut and eno makpid. Mishum mi'uto hamakpid, because after all, if we're concerned that a person will then have to be considered to be not to be a chatzitza if it's miut and eno makpid, well then he might come to then matir a case where it's miut and makpid, or inami mishum rubai sheno makpid. Again, if we say miut ve'eno makpid is going to be considered something that's not a chatzitza, then we might be concerned that then if he has ruboy and eno makpid, it will be okay as well when it's not. So why don't we make the gezerah all the way and say, in addition to miut umakpid and roiv ve'eno makpid, which the Rabbanan said a gezerah, let's say also miut ve'eno makpid. Because a person thinks that that's okay, then he might think that those other scenarios are also okay. Answers the Gemara, higufo gezerah, miut umakbid itself is a gezerah, or rov shein umakbid is itself the gezerah de Rabbanon. And we're going to then get up and make a gezerah on the gezerah itself. Those are also only midrabanan. So we're not going to make a gezerah, another safeguard on top of the safeguard. And therefore, only miut umakbid or roi ve'eno makbid is also midrabanan. But miut ve'eno makbid is not going to be a problem. Now the Gemara goes on to mechitzois that Rav says halacha l'moshe misina, and that itself the Gemara will challenge. Mechitzois di'araisa ninhu. Mechitzois, partitions, walls, are also midi'araisa. We find it from the Torah itself, and that halacha l'moshe misina. Do'amar mar aroin tisha v'kapores tefach harei kan asara. It says that an aroin, is Tisha, and the Torah tells us that it's 1.5 amos. It comes out to be 6 tfachim plus 3 tfachim, gives us 9 tfachim. The kaporos is a tefach, so altogether it comes out with 10 tfachim. So we have over here the scenario where HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu from on top of the kaporos, above that eser tfachim, whereby that itself tells us that the partition itself is 10 tfachim. Take a look at Rashi in Dibur HaMaschil, Aaron Tisha v'kaporos tefach. It's right before the Rashis begin getting wide. Rashi explains, Aaron goiva Tisha tfachim. Like we said, the Aaron has a height of 9 tfachim, and therefore, because it says Dirshu v'am v'chetzi koimosoi, 1.5 amos, and each amma is 6 tfachim, so that's 9 tfachim tall. The kaporos tefach harei asara, plus the tefach of the kaporos gives it a entire height of 10 tfachim. V'ksiv, and it states v'dibarti itcho me'al kaporos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will speak to you from on top of the kaporos, which is above the 10 tfachim. V'tanya per kama de sukkah. It teaches in a brayso in Masechet Sukkah. Rabbi Yosi Omer, Lo oilam lo yarda shchina lamata me'asar. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not bring His presence below eser amos. Dirshu, it says Hashomayim shomayim la Hashem v'haaretz nosan livnei odom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says the Shomayim belongs to Him, the Aretz belongs to man. Whereby HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not come down to the Aretz. He only goes above the Aretz. What's considered to be above the Aretz? Still within 10 tfachim of the ground is still considered to be part of the Aretz. Only above that is considered to be another domain. And therefore, and yet Kadosh Baruch Hu did speak to Moshe Rabbeinu above the kaparis. So it must be that the height of asar tfachim, that's considered to be no longer the Aretz. That's considered to be a full partition of asar tfachim. Al ma'asara have mechitza. The lamala me'asara lechoshiv le'reshus tachtis. Above the 10 tfachim is not considered to be the lower domain of the Aretz. Ela reshusa achriti. So here we have the proof from the Torah that a mechitza is asar tfachim. So the Gemara is challenging. How did we see that Rav tells us that the source of halacha Moshe Misina? We see it from the Torah itself, from the pasuk itself. Answers the Gemara, lo tzricha. LeRabbi Yehuda the Omar Amas binyan be'ama bas shisha, Amas kelim be'ama bas chamisha. This is according to Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says that the building, meaning the Mishkan itself, like the partition of the Mishkan, meaning the Yirmiyahu and the crushing, the boards of the Mishkan, they were defined as 6 tfachim per amma. But the kelim of the Mishkan, namely in this case the Aron, was 5 tfachim, and therefore 5 tfachim plus another half of an amma is only 7.5 tfachim. With the kaparas of a tefach, it's a total of only 8.5. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we don't know that asar tfachim is a mechitza unless it's a halach l'Moshe Sinai. So Gemara is answering, that's what Rav meant when he said, we know mechitza is halacha Moshe Sinai according to Rabbi Yehuda. Ask the Gemara, that's good according to Rabbi Yehuda, but the Rabbi Meir the Amar kol amos hayu b'beinonis ma'ikil meimah. But according to Rabbi Meir, that says all of the amos are measured as 6 tfachim. So then you have the Aaron HaKodesh, which is again 9 tfachim plus the kaporos, a total of 10 tfachim. We learn it from the Torah, and therefore, why did Rav say that the shiurim are halacha Moshe Sinai? He wasn't only going to Rabbi Yehuda. He seemingly was saying that there's such things as shiurim, mechitzos, and chatzitza halacha Moshe Sinai. So what will that be according to Rabbi Meir? Answers the Gemara, Rabbi Meir ki asoy hilchasa. You're right. When in regards to mechitzos, that's according to Rabbi Yehuda. But according to Rabbi Meir, what's halacha Moshe Sinai? Other things. Legud, v'lalavud, uledoifen akuma. Good, we say, is an extension where you take the wall and you elongate a wall. For example, you have a wall, is 10 tfachim tall. You want it to then be elongated up. In other words, you have, let's say, a sukkah, and the walls are 10 tfachim, and the schach is another 10 tfachim above that. So we say that the mechitzos have good asik, they're able to go up and meet the schach that is above where those walls would extend to. That's called good asik mechitzas. Similarly, the other direction, we have something called good achis mechitzas, where you have the walls that are able to then, even if they're not going down to the ground, they're able to then be extended, halach l'mashim Sinai, as then going down to the ground, and that's called good. Ula lavud, which we discussed in different places, that lavud means that it's an enclosure. So if you have, let's say, within 3 tfachim of the ground, it's called as if it's on the ground. Or you have a wall that you have beams that are within 3 tfachim apart, it's considered to be lavud, as if it's closed. And that's the halach l'mashim Sinai of lavud. Uledoifen akuma, which we also discussed in Daf Gimel Amud Beis, that also means that a wall can be curved. And again, in the case of a sukkah, where a person has a sukkah wall, and he has schach, but does not extend to the wall. In between the kosher schach, he has posel schach, that goes from the schach to the wall. If it's within dalid amos, then we say that the wall is able to then curve and extend through the schach posel, and therefore considered to be one elongated wall, one curved wall. And it's called doifen akuma. So the Gemara is saying, according to Rabbi Meir, who does learn from the pasuk that the Aron, together with the kaporos, is 10 tfachim, so he learns out mechitza from the Torah. He learns out, however, other halachas, halacha mashmis Sinai, and those are good, lavud, and doifen akuma.